Welcome back, everyone. It's been quite a while, but I'm back after really, I'd say a 1.5 month hiatus. If my voice is a little bit hoarse, it's actually because I've been rehearsing to myself over and over again, practicing, I guess, talking to all of you on future videos and live shows by talking to myself, because I've been doing a lot of research, a lot of changes behind the scenes. I imagine some of these things are pretty obvious to you when you look at, well, the display bar down below the video, which is showing our future live stream times, the background that I have behind me, and the new kind of setup that I have. And also my new chair, too. I got a more comfortable chair. So a lot of pluses, a lot of upgrades, a lot of good things, just like, Georgia and Ohio State recruiting. A lot of good things have been going on behind the scenes, and it's ultimately time to come back. Now, how quickly will I be able to, I guess, roll down the hill? How quickly will the snowball effect take place where I have enough ready to really start pumping out content at the insane rate that I want to? It certainly won't be happening today, because today's just a question and answer session. I'm not going to be doing any snippets from this, and there's still a lot of work to be done on my end of things. But I will be back. There will be videos out. Probably this Wednesday's live show at 6 p.m. Eastern time, I will have actual topics to talk about. Won't be taking any questions then. I'm still figuring out whether I want to do an exclusive, question and answer session, mailbag type live stream, and several other things about the channel, because I truly believe that this can be the next big thing. I think that we can be the next Joel Klatt, the next Josh Pate, and we can provide something that they can't. Not because they're not good. They're obviously good at their job. I like Klatt's analysis. I like listening to his announcing. I think him and Gus Johnson do make an entertaining pair, and even though I think they've fallen off, as I think most of us can admit, over the past few seasons, I think that's almost more of just Gus Johnson's announcement style, if I'm being honest. I think eventually people get tired of hearing everything as a big play or all the different nicknames, but I still appreciate Klatt. Tune into his stuff. And then Pate's so connected and personable and concise and obviously knows what he's doing. But we can provide something different and something that the college football world needs as well. What that exactly is, I'm discovering that, but I'm thinking it's what we've done before. A lot of analysis, a lot of deep dives, a lot of previews. On my part, less overthinking, but still doing those things, of course, and getting into a lot of the technical and analytical side. Everything's freezing up on my end. That's another thing, too. Got to figure out some, connection or whether this computer's good enough to do everything I want. That's why you see the second computer on the left side of your screen, is I have that here because I'm starting to think that when I'm running my streaming service, OBS, which I never knew before, that is an acronym for Open Broadcasting System. That's pretty cool. Maybe the Alienware should only be used to run my streaming stuff, because there's a lot of things operating in the background, and maybe I can use this silver Livono, which was meant to be a school laptop of mine, although I'm almost done with college, to have my notes on and different things. And we have a lot of people in the chat, which is awesome. So since we have a lot of people in here, and I've kind of revealed my spiel about, well, I haven't done that yet, but I just want to mention to you all, comment your questions in the chat, anything you have. I'm going to be live for an hour, maybe a little over an hour, because I'm live for the first time in forever, and I love it. My passion over the past really 3 days, as I've recovered from wisdom tooth surgery and I've finished my final full-time semester at the University of Michigan, my passion for football's really exploded. I haven't graduated yet, but I only have 3 classes left. I'm spreading them out to save money, and also so that I can do this with all of you. So ask your questions. Please do that, and I'll get to them, but I'll continue talking about a lot of different things, about where I was, some ideas I have for the channel. Think of this almost as kind of an all-access pass to previewing a little bit of what this channel could be in the future, and also a little bit about my own life. So, just fidgeting with things because I can. College in this winter semester was a lot. It was 3 different classes for totally different topics, and one of them was an econ course. The other is a gen ed course. The other was something that I was interested in. All of them were hard to different degrees. And then you add on the fact that I'm commuting to campus, I'm driving there. There were some just very brief, odd jobs that I did here and there to earn a little bit of side income. And I also just wanted to make upgrades and felt a little bit directionless about the channel. So all of that combined is just a lot. And all that being compressed in such a short period of time where, you have 24 hours in a day, but ideally 7 or 8 for sleep. My family and I are taking care of my grandparents now a little bit more, and they they're not going to see this, so I can say this on here. They take a lot of energy out of me. Like, I love them, but spending time with them is exhausting. It takes you out, and that's not fun. And then there's a lot going on. So after a week or two, I'm like, I haven't uploaded in a while. Let's try. Just wasn't there. The tank was empty, I guess is the proper way to say it. And now we're here. And I'm back because I finally was able to get up off the mat and make some changes. And here we are. I mean, we're going to have hopefully daily content starting Wednesday. I'm not promising anything. That's why I said hopefully. I'm really hoping that I can hit a gear that I haven't before. And I think with what I've been doing even today or yesterday with just working in OBS, I think that I can. But we'll have to see. So that was the life update from my perspective. Some things that I'm thinking about for the future of this channel, but no promises whatsoever. And just a little bit of a sneak preview of some ideas. I'd like to cover some schools on a more granular, personal, and consistent basis. Obviously, these schools will be bigger schools, or maybe 1 or 2 of them won't be some of the biggest schools, but they'll be ones I'm very passionate about, very interested in, or that have had previously good fan engagement. You can probably guess which schools these already are. Doesn't mean I'll only be covering them. I want to cover as much as I reasonably can. That's an asterisk right there. Reasonably, because that depends on the week. That depends on things that are outside of my control. Not everything. There are things in our control. I was about to say nothing is in our control. That's not true. But there are always some things that are not in our control. And I think anyone can attest to that. So within reason, I'm going to try and cover everything. But this is a business. This is something I want to do for the rest of my life. Certain fan bases are bigger, more engaging, and also better than others, to be frank. I mean, I've been open in saying that Nebraska has the best fan base in college football. They do. By any metric, they do. They don't have the toxicity of most blue blood fan bases. They show up. What happened during the Brady Hoke era at Michigan and what happened to Ohio State in their first round playoff game where the fans essentially quit would never happen at Nebraska. Would never happen. Speaking of those same fan bases, the whole, popular stories around the sign stealing stuff, which more news on that dropped today, and I'll go in more detail on that on Wednesday because it's news, and it relates to football in the way that Michigan won't have their head coach for 2 weeks at the minimum. I expect that I expect that probably the NCAA will go after Sharon Moore for more games. I'm kind of thinking first 4 games of the season is just a number that makes sense. We don't know. But again, Nebraska, I don't think they'd be engaging in some of the negative ways that Michigan and some Michigan and Ohio State fans have. Not saying there's no bad Nebraska fans, but they're one of the best. I mean, I have sold them so much hope that has been false, not intentional, but false, and they don't care. They still like me. Meanwhile, whenever I get something wrong for Michigan or Ohio State, you know what my comment section's filled with? You're an idiot. You're biased, just as an example. I love my Buckeyes and Wolverines, though. I'm a Wolverine myself, and then Ohio State fans have basically been the bread and butter of the channel and probably will remain to be so, and I want to connect with them more because it's a good fan base, a knowledgeable fan base, and the largest in the entire country. So let me get to some of your guys' questions. I also want to mention that yesterday I did go on a show. You'll see him in my chat here, the Thunder Redmond Michigan football show. I was on a call with TJ Ronan from the Voice of College Football from Michigan. I was on his show. He invited me as a guest. We accepted callers, and the Thunder Redmond Michigan football show joined in, and we had a chat on there. And then afterwards, we exchanged Discords, we texted, and we made a video together talking about Michigan, Ohio State a little bit. Just thought it'd be a good thing to go on a channel like his, a smaller channel. I was once small like that. So go on his channel, the Thunder Redmond Michigan Football Show, and just check that out. So let me look at the comments now. Welcome back, Go Blue. Go Blue to you, Kinetic. DeMoney5675. Oh crap, Sam's back. Chris Lane, Sam is here. Gotta go. I'm glad you could pop in. Armand seems like he was waiting for me. Fight Joel and Pate on a live stream. That would be funny. You know, the questions I would ask them, I would ask Joel, for one, why he shills for Big Noon Kickoff when it's not good for the sport. And number 2, I would ask Josh Pate why he never criticizes certain coaches. I'd ask him that. I would ask why he stays away from any hot seat talk. I'd also ask why he used to not do preseason predictions. He'd only do them in August. And then this year he started doing way too early conference stuff. I'd ask him what changed about that. It's a welcome change for me, but I don't know what drove that decision, and I found that kind of interesting. It seems like a break away from his identity. I honestly think that Gus has fallen off. For example, the Sawyer interception against Michigan versus the Hollywood Brown call is night and day. It is. It is absolutely night and day. He sounds older. He sounds like he's lost juice, honestly. Joe Ressa, Sam, what are you taking in college? I am getting a bachelor's in economics. That's what I'm doing. Sam, we've missed you. You're the only one in the Michigan media ecosystem that doesn't sugarcoat everything and will talk the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, the good news is Michigan, of course, is going to be one of those teams that I cover more because their fan base is big. I'm passionate about them. I enjoy it. And there's news. There's always news about Michigan. There's a lot of good, bad, and ugly about Michigan. I will tell you just very briefly what some of those things are. The good is the defense, and I think that Bryce Underwood is a freak. I can't even describe how high I am on him. I'm higher on him than a lot of the fanatics who most would consider insane, but I think I have good reason for that. The bad, I would say, is Michigan football off the field. No matter what happens with the scandal, but that's tied in. Michigan's staff has some questions on the field, off the field, with recruiting, with game management. If you go into the scandal a little bit more, I mean, there's a chance that Sharon Moore will be suspended for half the season, or maybe it'll be only 2 games. Maybe it'll be 4. I mean, maybe it'll be 6. Maybe he'll get hit with a show cause and he'll be fired. And Michigan will have an interim coach for the fall, which I would hate, and it would be a nightmare, but at least Michigan has 2 coaches on the staff who have been head coaches before, and this roster's very talented. It's not the best roster in football. It's not better than the top 4 Big Ten rosters in my mind in terms of starters, but it's one of the deepest. I would say it's top 3 in the Big Ten in depth, and it's an impressive unit. But the staff, this staff is nowhere near what the 2023 or 2022 staff or even the 2021 staff was when you had Josh Gaddis and McDonald, who was an elite DC, but I don't think quite who Minter was. That's the bad of it. The bad of it is Michigan has questions where you don't want them. Staff, off-the-field variables like the university being under investigation, and the Matt Weiss stuff, I couldn't report on that, but if you guys follow me on Twitter, you saw that I said it was that's terrible. That's disgusting. I mean, some idiots act like Connor Stallions is like a, Jerry Sandusky level criminal, which is it just shows that, the people who act like that really think that like their team that Michigan beat during that era would be invincible if not for that, which is lunacy, because whether it's that team or those teams, they had a variety of toxic issues on the field. They weren't bad off the field. But more importantly, at the end of the day, that's football. It's a game. You break rules, you get punished, but that's different from the stuff that Jerry Sandusky did, which was just messed up. Horrible. Should be in prison forever. The stuff that Matt Weiss did, on the other hand, is comparable. Maybe that's the ugly. And it is the ugly. But for the football side of things, I think the ugly for Michigan is the wide receiver room. I watched the spring game, and I came away very impressed with Underwood overall. I came away thinking that Michigan has one of the worst receiver cores I've ever seen. That's not going to be good, especially in big games. Especially. So if Michigan makes the playoff this year, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be pretty. It might even be worse than 2021 against Georgia, just because of the matchups and the fact that Underwood's still young, so he's not going to be hitting all of his deep balls. He's not going to be the nation's number 1 QB. I'm saying that as someone who's very high on him, by the way, and thinks that he could be that in year 1, but I'm not going to predict that. Do you plan on interviewing any coaches and players? I would love to, but that's not in the plans yet. I want to get down the basics. What I want to do is I want to lay down the turf, lay down whatever surface is best. I hear Ohio State fans, for example, criticize their practice turf because it's not the best. I forget what type it is, but they criticize it, and it is bad. It's something that needs to be changed. If you follow the team closely, you'll know that. I want to make sure I have the right turf, the right foundation, and all that laid out before I paint the football field. Interviewing coaches and interviewing players will be like painting the football field. After everything else is done, I will get to that. I hope. Here's a thought for the future. Penn State. I'm very high on Penn State. You will kind of get a more detailed peek into that on Wednesday. Did I already say on the channel, like in January or February, that I thought they were winning the Natty? I mean, if you didn't know that, then yes, I think Penn State's basically winning the Natty. I'm very high on the Nittany Lions. I know James Franklin, as recently as 2023, Penn State fans thought I was a hater because I basically said that Aller was overhyped and Franklin was a garbage game manager. Both of those things might still be true, but when you have Jim Knowles, the offensive line that they do, the tight ends they do, the revamped wide receiver room, and when Aller being overhyped is simply him not being the best quarterback, but being top 15 or top 10, that's a different discussion than what we were having in 2023, when I don't think they were anywhere close to a to top 5, like some were saying. About to go live with Maze Madman, but wanted to stop in and say hey and show support. Thank you. Have a great time on the live show. Let me see what else. Go Big Red, Chris Lane. Hi, Judy. Joe says excellent economics. Punishing Sharon for deleting texts that held no incriminating evidence and accusing him of doing it to hide evidence of nothing is insane. I don't know if it's insane, but what I will say is depending on what Michigan knows, the whole 2-game suspension thing might be insane. If what people say is true and that Michigan really is in deep trouble, I have no clue why you would come out with the suspension today. I have absolutely no idea. If Michigan doesn't have any leverage, if really they're just a sitting duck waiting to be annihilated, I don't know why you do that unless you're a total idiot, which may be the case. If the NCAA really can't do anything, which is the other extreme, which probably isn't correct, then I don't know why you would do that either, honestly. So I just want to see what the punishments are, how severe they are. That's really it, honestly. Like, I just want it to be over with. I think everyone does. I think the only people who want this to be drawn out are Michigan fans who think that they didn't do anything wrong, which is incorrect, or they don't think they're going to get anything, that they're going to get away with this, 100% unscathed. That's probably incorrect. And then on the other side of the coin, you have the Ohio State fans who think that Ryan Day would be or wouldn't be known as the next Nick Saban if not for some guy on the sidelines who got suspended and then Michigan, beat Ohio State anyway that year and the year after that. So those are, I think, the only groups of people who want this to go on. And I don't think that's most people at all. It's terrible when the staff causes problems that cost the players. They deserve a coach who is there for all the games. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that Michigan should have been more cooperative because think about it this way. If the NCAA has power and they can make enforcements, then you want to be cooperative so you minimize the punishment. If they don't have much power, you still want to be cooperative so you have a better reputation because some people care about that stuff. Like some do care about ceremonial I guess I'm going to say ceremonial reputation because, yeah, like that's kind of, if the NCAA is powerless, which I'm not saying they are, but if they are, then respecting them would be purely for ceremonial and appearance reasons, nothing else. I don't think that's what this is, though. It's just me going through different examples. Do you think the Big Ten wins another title? Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon. Yes, I do. I think it's Penn State. I'm all in on Ohio State for 2026. I'm kind of out on them for this year, and I'll be going over that these next few months. Oregon is a team that I have a sneaking suspicion people aren't talking about. I feel like people watched the Rose Bowl and Ohio State blow them out, and they said, oh yeah, Oregon will never be Ohio State. Day will always be better than Lanning. Oregon's a afterthought program who can only purchase good things but can't use them properly. And they just forgot about him. And I don't think that's true at all. I think Oregon's actually just a tad bit underrated. I just got to find out where they are rated. As, the famous paidism is, well, what are they rated? That's the question for Oregon. I think they're a little underrated, but I don't know for sure because I don't exactly know where they are rated. I can see an argument for them being outside the top 5. I can see an argument for them being, it'd be bold, but if you have them as preseason number 1, I won't argue with you. I think they have enough talent and alien players to make that work. But yes, I do think the Big Ten wins another title. I think the Big Ten teams right now, the top of the Big Ten, is better than the top of any other conference. The SEC is still deeper. The SEC still produces tougher strengths of schedule. But the Big Ten has the better teams at the top. They do. I think, for example, last year, Indiana would have played Georgia much more competitively than they played Notre Dame or Ohio State. Same thing with Tennessee. Same thing with Alabama. I don't even think Texas would have destroyed them because Texas didn't have a very effective offense. And I think Indiana's defense was pretty damn good. Let me see. Have I talked to Connor lately? I actually have. I have talked to Corn Crazed privately. Since our private conversation is a private conversation, I won't share any details, but I have been in communication with him, and he's actually helped me with some things involving the channel. Elijah, will Ohio State win the national championship game? Going back-to-back is hard. And it's hard when you're in an era where it's hard to retain depth, and because of NIL, and because of the portal, and because Texas exists and Oregon exists, and they can buy all the best players in the portal, that makes things hard. It makes it hard to reload. And then you lose staffers. I mean, think of Georgia from 2021 to 2022. Georgia had better recruiting, better depth, more bodies, and they had staff retention. They also had Brock Bowers, which Ohio State is Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs, but then you add in that Georgia brought back, a loaded O-line, a loaded D-line. Ohio State, I don't think anyone's going to argue they're not loaded on the D-line, and the O-line, I'd say it's the same thing. Ohio State, I think, is kind of at a fork in the road for this year. I don't think much of this matters for 2026, where they return so much of their roster and probably their staff to where I would peg them as natty favorites for 2026. Ohio State's at a fork in the road this year because we get to see what we basically get to see, and I'm having a hard time saying this because it's confusing. See, Ohio State last year, thanks to changes, the 12-team playoff, and Ohio State responding to the adversity that they created in the Michigan game against themselves. They responded to it well, used it as fuel to win it all because of their recruiting and development and use of the portal. They won it all. And they had their best season under Ryan Day in terms of achievement because they won it all. I still think the 2019 Ohio State team probably handily blows out that team. But that, at this point, 2019 is closer to a decade ago than anything else, and it's almost a totally different era. You didn't have the portal in the same way you do today. Players weren't getting paid. You didn't have the same insane salaries. You didn't have super conferences. So table that. The point I'm trying to make is that last year was also almost Ryan Day's worst season at Ohio State. I think that saying he should have been fired after the Michigan game, that the program was a joke, that it was nowhere near where Urban Meyer was, which I didn't say any of those things. I empathized with the fact that maybe Day should have been fired after Michigan because the loss was just that bad. However, it never made sense. I think it's the same thing to say that because Day went 4-0 after the Michigan game, it's a 4-game sample size. Ohio State was the preseason favorites. They were expected to win it all. That just because they responded well to the adversity they created doesn't mean they're all of a sudden the obvious number one program in football and that they're just going to steam ahead and have no problems. I learned from 2024 that listen to this here, that prior outcomes sometimes, and actually in college football, many times, many instances, have absolutely no bearing on the future. You have to look at things for what they are. You have to compartmentalize. Look at it through a box. Look at it under a microscope. I thought that Michigan, because the program they built, the strength and conditioning, the way that they won, that they were going to defy some of the obvious weaknesses and have success last year. Now, some of that came up against Ohio State and Alabama and Indiana, the final few games of the year, and it gave them success. But those weaknesses also crippled them against Texas, against Oregon, Illinois, Washington, nearly crippled them against a bad Michigan State team, and against Indiana. You know, if Michigan had Joe Milton at quarterback, they probably come back and beat Indiana if everything else is held constant. I mean, that's how bad Michigan's quarterback room was, guys. I ignored some of the weaknesses. Not going to do that again. It's the same thing to a certain degree with Iowa. Iowa brought everyone back, so I thought they would be so much better and even flirt for a, you know, one of the higher seeded playoff spots. But what I ignored is when you win that many close games and you're that low in power ratings despite a high win total, you'll probably improve the following year when you bring that much production back, but you're probably losing a few of the close games that you should have lost the prior year. Those lessons that I've learned, I've tried to apply to multiple teams. And will Ohio State win the national championship game? They can. They're one of the few teams who can lose that much and be this firmly in the conversation. It's why they're the favorites currently to win it all. On top of the fact that Ohio State's fan base is the largest, the biggest in the nation, one of the wealthiest, and they're so huge compared to all the other fan bases by a mile, that means that, you know, the Vegas has to treat them differently. They have to, because if you peg Ohio State the wrong way, their entire fan base will bet on their team, and because their team's successful, that means Vegas has to manage their money extra cautiously when it involves Ohio State. They just have to. They can, but I'm not going to pick them to this year. I think that out of Georgia, Oregon, Texas, Ole Miss, let me count this again. Okay, Ole Miss, Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, Notre Dame. Alabama returns the most, but they were also the only team out of that group that didn't make the CFP. I think two of those teams, potentially three of those teams, are due to scheduling reasons, due to what they lose, that they could lose 3 games and just be out of the playoff picture entirely. Like, by the time seeding comes around, you know they're not going to be in the playoff, essentially. Maybe Ohio State's one of those teams. Maybe they're not. We'll have to see. But it's harder now than ever to replace talent unless you have the best coaches or clearly the best players in the country. It's very hard. I would say last season for Ohio State, their O-line did not have, they had some of the best starters, but they didn't have the best depth. Thankfully for all the other positions, they had the best players and the best coaches in football. Jim Knowles is the best DC. Day was one of the best head coaches, if not the best head coach in the country last year, and is overall. I thought that James Laurinaitis had an awesome year last season. Same thing with Matt Guerrieri. Larry Johnson's unit took some steps forward. I thought that Keenan Bailey did a great job with the tight ends. Carlos Lachlan was phenomenal. And yeah, they went 14-2. They beat everyone to a pulp in the playoffs minus Texas, and they're national champions, and they should celebrate that fact. It's a very long-winded answer, but it's complicated because Ohio State's that good. Will they? I don't think so. Can they? Yes, along with only a handful of other teams, because Ohio State's one of the best programs in the country. SDP Sean doesn't play. Why is Moore getting punished for something Harbaugh did? He's getting punished in this game for deleting text messages, and maybe it's not the NCAA either. It's some Michigan self-imposing. So Michigan, in their mind, might be punishing him for everything. Pete Thamel reported almost a year ago, preseason 2024, that the most likely punishment against Michigan would be a suspension on Sharon Moore. He didn't think that vacating wins was going to happen, that vacating championships was going to happen, didn't think there was a postseason ban at all on the table, or really anything outside of Sherrone Moore. And part of that makes sense because a lot of the players, and more importantly, the staffers who were on those teams who participated or should have known about said cheating are gone. The only one remaining is Sherrone Moore. That's it. So with his closeness to Stallions and the fact they texted and then he deleted the texts, the NCAA has something to pull on, to tug on there. He didn't do nothing. Moore didn't do nothing in this whole event. Now, how much did he actually do? I don't know. Chris Carter. Nice name. Reminds me of Ohio State legend Chris Carter, but I see you have a Michigan profile, so I don't think you're Chris Carter. I've been at school. I've been setting up my studio. That's basically where I've been. If Franklin or Sark doesn't win it all this year, do they ever? Sark, yes, because they have so much money and they're recruiting at such a high clip that even if his game management struggles continue, which, by the way, this is something that I'm going to show in a later show. Texas and Penn State only have one win against FPI top 10 teams since 2021. Penn State's came in 2022. Texas's came in 2023. I am convinced with the research that I've done that Steve Sarkisian and James Franklin are basically the same guy. Sark's just a better recruiter, but also coincidentally, Texas naturally is a better recruiting hotspot than Penn State, and they have more money and they've been more engaged in NIL than Penn State has, especially when you factor in previous seasons. But yeah, Sark and Franklin have some of the worst game management of coaches that are as successful as they are in terms of like the 11-win seasons, reaching your conference championship game, having success in the 12-team playoff. Franklin is a bigger question because they don't recruit at the same level that Texas does. I think their staff is pretty similar. I actually think that Penn State might have the best staff in all of college football. So I think eventually they can. It took Tom Osborne forever to win a natty. It's same thing with other coaches, for example. I'm just trying to think of an example. Like Vince Dooley took him a while to win it all. I know that Dabo Swinney took him a while. Took Jim Harbaugh a while. So I would say yes for both. They could, but this is the prime year for Franklin. As for Sark, I don't think any year is really a prime year for him. I think Arch Manning's coming back no matter what happens this year, barring he's just so insane that he's number one overall guaranteed. At that point, you leave straight up. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Oregon is going to be talented this year, but young. I think their hype won't show up for a couple more years to us fans. I can see that, Sean. I will say, though, Trey McNutt, Naeem Offord, they showed out in the spring game. I think there's a pretty good chance that even though Oregon is extremely young, youth, especially on defense, might be better. Because they have Lupoy as DC. Lupoy is not going to do what Indiana did last year, or what Ohio State did last year, or what Manny Diaz did at Penn State, Jesse Minter or Mike McDonald did at Michigan, etc. He's not going to take guys that are not freak athletes and turn them into freak players because they're good at scheming or elite at development. That's not who Lupoy is. He's not a Bryant Haynes, Jesse Minter, Mike McDonald. He may not even be a Tom Allen, and I don't even think he's Tom Allen caliber. He's certainly not a Jim Knowles, Manny Diaz, etc. But what he is good at doing is recruiting. And when you're Oregon and you've had the number one classes in the Big Ten for the previous 2 years, and you just signed a true freshman class that in terms of average rank per recruit is up there with Alabama and Ohio State's 2021 recruiting class, you may have some early key contributors that you should just get on the field immediately. Because maybe if you can't out-scheme people on defense, you can out-talent them. And then I think Will Stein on offense and the staff they have there, I think the world of them. Absolutely think the world of them. Let me see. If you take Jeremiah Smith out, it's possible that Ohio State still has the best wide receiver room. Oh, yeah. If you took Smith out, Ohio State this year, I think, obviously has the best wide receiver room in the nation. The only team that could compete, and I think it would take Jeremiah Smith being injured or him somehow having this mental implosion, would be Alabama. With Ryan Williams, with Jeremy Bernard, Isaiah Horton coming in, and some of the talent they have there. Oh, and Clemson. I can't forget Clemson's wide receiver room. It's even better than Alabama's. But still, I think Ohio State's wide receiver room right now is one of the best, if not the best overall position group in America. That's amazing. Absolutely phenomenal. Thunder Redmond. What does Bryce take? What does Bryce take Michigan to the semifinals? But I don't exactly understand your question. Are you saying does Bryce take Michigan to the semifinals, but he loses? But if he loses, will Michigan be the team to beat for the 26th national title? I'm not. I can't buy Michigan winning a natty yet until I see the coaching staff outcoach someone, or coach their team and personnel to such a high level that they really dominate people again, like they did in 23 or 22 in the second half. I just can't. I think Underwood's going to be awesome. I think Underwood's going to be at Michigan for at minimum 3 years. Maybe he's here for 4. Although if he's as generational as the recruiting services say he is, you hope it's only 3 years, unless you can pay him an ungodly amount of money to come back for year 4. At that point, the only reason he would, on top of the money, which at that point would probably have to be similar to an NFL first-round salary, would be to win it all. Yeah, it's difficult for me to buy Michigan with the staff. It is the roster. It would be easier if, let's say, Michigan got Penn State's portal wide receiver class. Then I could see that roster pretty easily being natty caliber. But with the receiver troubles they have and the staff, I have a hard time with that right now. Oh, let me see. Thoughts on Ohio State's portal additions? Oh, this is good. By the way, for any of you watching, please send more questions. I'm only going to be on until 7. I can already feel myself getting tired. I've basically all the studio stuff you see behind me, I finished today. All of that. It's been in the works for a few days, but yeah. We'll be on for 16 more minutes. And then Wednesday's show won't be like this at all. I think I'm going to have an exclusive mailbag episode. Not determined yet. But I think I'll have a mailbag episode. It's an idea. It's an idea. No promises. But this is fun, personally. And then what I can do is I can answer your questions, but do it in a more professional way. So I could have graphics and even go in depth on your questions instead of, talking off the top of my head, which is you can probably tell I've done a lot of research. I think this is the most researched I've ever been for a season. It helps when you have some computer programmers to assist you, and now I even have some computer programming background. So I can take some stuff up. Yeah, and as for the hoarse voice, I've been practicing for stuff because it's been a while since I've talked. On the Ohio State portal editions, I think the kicker is the biggest one. Some say Ananwa or Claire, and I think Claire could be bigger if Claire stays for his final year of eligibility, which means he's back for 2026. Ananwa, he could be the next elite Ohio State offensive tackle, but I will also say that it did take Josh Simmons like a full year to become a bona fide alien. Like, it took him a full year to do that. And Ananwa is an older player. Like, again, redshirt senior. He's been in college for 4 years. This is, when you look at Ohio State and their O-line and their D-line, I thought they should have went after more starting caliber players there, potentially even overpaid for them, because we all know, and we know because, certain fans, whether it's Michigan fans and Penn State fans are doing this now too, because Penn State's very well aware. Bless me. Gosh, my voice is hoarse. They're very well aware that they're strong in the trenches, that the trenches run college football. Gosh, this cough is bad. Promise you guys, I'm not getting sick. I'm just... I'm breaking down over here. Holy cow. I promise you I'm not getting sick. I'm just losing my voice a little bit. Good thing I'm not doing a show tomorrow. Probably trying to not talk all that much tomorrow. I'm also not used to talking because I just got off my wisdom teeth surgery. Like, I basically didn't talk for 3 days straight because it hurt. And I was, on pain pills. But, yeah, sorry about that. Ohio State, with their portal additions, has reinforced to me that they're kind of exactly like their 2021 and 2022 team. Better on defense than 2021 for sure. I'm not going to say that. And probably worse on the O-line than 2022. But they're more back to what I would think is a usual Ryan Day team. Skill positions are epic, especially in the passing attack. You have a pro-style QB, and then defense is kind of the shakiest it's been roster-wise since 2022. Mostly because of what's there up front. The 2022 defense did not have the talent at linebacker or DB that Ohio State has now. Not even close, but they also don't have... They had better D-line talent because they had that 2021 class and other players like Zach Harrison on that team, for example. I think that Ohio State is that, except they have a reliable kicker who can hit from 50 plus. So basically Noah Ruggles, if Noah Ruggles had more power, because Noah Ruggles was super reliable and good in college, except you have more oomph in his leg now. You have him back, and I think that getting the DNs in Bo Atkinson and Logan George, not Jalen George, but Logan George, that was a necessity. I like Atkinson. I think he's a good player. We'll see if it translates to the Big Ten, but I think he'll at least translate to being a good Big Ten player. And the good thing about him is he has another year of eligibility. So a lot of the transfers Ohio State added, whether it's the kicker, the tight end, the D end, a lot of their best additions are, I think part of the reason why they came is not just because they wanted to play for Ohio State for 1 year. I think many of them came because they can be at Ohio State for 2 years. And with what Ohio State has done or not done in the portal, suggests to me that I think they believe in 2026. They also, I think, believe in this year, but they definitely see where the winds are going in 2026. I mean, that should be... Ohio State in 2026, if everything pans out, should be just as good as what they were in 2024, if not potentially better, because they will actually have an offensive line coach and not a stick of lard coaching the offensive line. That's just me, though, with the Ohio State transfer portal. I thought it was pretty good myself with the kicker. The kicker was the icing on the cake. Before the kicker, I'm like, this is maybe an overrated class relative to what Ohio State needs. But with the kicker, bingo. That's exactly what Ohio State needs. They need a kicker and a guy who can be a dog at kicking. And they don't just need him for 1 year, they need him for 2. Because again, 2026, circle this. I don't think some people will like my prediction for Ohio State or how I will describe them. But I have made it clear at the same time I'm all in on Ohio State for 2026. The kicker makes me way more confident because imagine 2024 Ohio State with a better O-line, so their offense is closer to 2022, And then imagine if instead of Jaden Fielding or Noah Ruggles, they have more of a James Turner or a Jake Moody level kicker. You're not stopping that team, especially in today's era where Ohio State does a very good job of holding on to their roster. They very, very good job. I think Day is one of the best, if not the best culture in college football. So that's my thoughts on Ohio State's portal additions. It's definitely an overall better class than most Big Ten portal additions. In terms of quality, in terms of depth, I don't know. I know people have questioned Ohio State's depth this year, and I certainly would at O-line and D-line, but everywhere else I really wouldn't. I mean, Hartline's the best in the business, and there's an argument that Lachlan, Laurinaitis, and Guerreri are also the best in their business. There's also an argument that Day is the best in his business. So Ohio State has some of the best coaches, multiple of them, in their facility, in the Woody Hayes. So, John Long, I like the new background, Sam. Well, thank you very much, and also congratulations on your graduation. I appreciate it. Jack was basically my only friend at the University of Michigan. Do you really see Texas winning the SEC? Georgia is still Georgia. Georgia plays Texas and views Texas in the same way that Michigan plays Ohio State and that Michigan plays Ohio State. Georgia takes Texas personally. Michigan takes Ohio State personally. It's like how, honestly, better analogy. It's like how Penn State takes Maryland. That is how Georgia takes Texas. Like, they want to get on the field and they want to kill them and leave nothing behind. They want to blow them out. I think that Texas is one of the best teams in the country. In fact, if there's any team that is going to stop Penn State outside of Penn State themselves, I think it's going to be Texas, personally, just due to matchups, how they've recruited. Texas right now is the best team in the country at roster building. They are. I would say you put them up there, you put Oregon up there, you put Penn State up there. Michigan used to be, but they've fallen off. I actually think Ohio State was better at roster construction a few years ago under Day than they are now, but they're trying to fix that. That's why they brought in Tyler Bowen, and I think by next year they'll once again be up there. But Texas understands that defense and trench play wins championships. It's why they nearly beat Ohio State last year, who has infinitely better skill position players than they do, and a better quarterback, because they were better in the trenches, and because they were similar on defense. And ESPN's efficiency actually says they were better than Ohio State on defense. I don't know if I quite agree with that. I will say they were more talented than Ohio State on defense for sure, mainly because of corner. But I don't know if they were better overall, because more talented, as we've seen time and time again, is different from better. Like, talent is typically NFL or high school rankings, or maybe raw athleticism. I mean, Brandon Graham at Michigan had insane raw athleticism, and that defense that he played under with Rich Rod was trash. So I don't think Texas wins the SEC, but then again, I don't exactly know who does. That conference is one of the more wide open conferences in football right now, because the talent distribution, especially down south, I think is leveling off. And then what you have is you have Big Ten teams where, because not all the Big Ten teams care about football, the top of the Big Ten is better able to acquire talent within their conference and within their pipelines with less competition compared to the SEC and their pipelines down south. Samuel, go Big Red. Go Big Red to you, Michael Valadez. Have you been crushing them Red Barons? I had like maybe one or two since I didn't make content, or maybe a little bit more than that. So yeah, I've been crushing the Red Barons. The Money 5675. I love the fact that Michigan fans treat Stallions like a hero and ignore the fact that they would not have had the opportunity to, they would not wait. I love the fact that Michigan fans treat Stallions like a hero and just ignore the fact that they would not have had the opportunity to cheat if they would have played Ohio State in 2020. 2020. Fair point. Honestly, pretty fair point right there that you bring up. I think Jim Harbaugh is probably fired if they play Ohio State, and Ohio State likely blows them out that year. This is true. And then I don't even know who Michigan hires at that point, and the entire program looks different. That played a very pivotal role in all of these things, honestly, like the COVID year did. I actually think it positively affected Penn State. It used to be, I thought, that Michigan learned their lesson after COVID, Penn State didn't, and that's really why Harbaugh separated, but Franklin didn't. I still kind of view it that way, except I think that Penn State learned lessons. That's why they have Phil Trautwein doing an awesome job on the O-line. It's why they got Jim Knowles. They just took like an additional year or two to get there. And I also think that Franklin forever has been an inferior game manager to Jim Harbaugh. He's just kind of a better recruiter, and I'd also say a better culture guy to compensate for that. And yeah, to back up what Chris Lane is saying, some Michigan fans support him, a disturbingly large amount do, but I don't even know if the majority do. I mean, I'm a Michigan fan. I don't show it much on the channel because... being objective is more fun than being delusional. Being objective allows me to set realistic expectations for Michigan. Like Michigan this year, they should reach the playoffs, and they should be like a top half seed or at least a top 2/3 seed, just looking at the tradition and the roster and the schedule. But they're not going to win the Natty. They maybe could, but if everything pans out, and you can say that for like more schools than just the schools who are top 10 in the odds board, which Michigan isn't. Michigan's 11th in odds to win the Natty for 2025. So most likely that means they won't, because typically your top 5, 4, 3 teams win it all, for example. And Michigan does not profile as a top 5 team this year. Liking Penn State, don't sleep on Clemson. I am not sleeping on Clemson. Believe me. But, how much can Tom Allen really fix in 1 year? That's my question. Because from my view of things, Tom Allen came to Penn State, and he did actually, in my mind, a pretty poor job. Like, by Penn State standards, he was a disappointment, in my mind. I think that if you had Manny Diaz for another, I will boldly say this: if Penn State has Manny Diaz for their defensive coordinator last year, they beat Oregon and they beat one of Ohio State or Notre Dame. That means nothing else changes. They either win the Big Ten or they win the Big Ten and play for a Natty last year. I don't know if they beat Ohio State because Ohio State was that good, and I don't think they win it all due to the offensive limitations and just the type of team Ohio State was at the end of last year. But Penn State, like, they probably go 14-2, maybe even, I don't know, like 15-1, or if they beat Ohio State and Ohio State still loses their 2 other games, maybe they beat Texas, because I think it would have been easier for them to play Texas than Ohio State. I mean, maybe they win it all last year if they have Diaz. I think the DC drop-off was that big. Now, Wes Goodwin was a disaster, so I think that Allen's an upgrade for Clemson. I just don't think the defense is going to be top 5 or even top 10 in 1 year. The offense will be insane, though. That's one of the best offenses in college football, and I think that 2021 or 2022 Ohio State could and probably would win the Natty this year if you took Texas and Penn State out. And that's what Clemson is, which is why I have them in my top 5, but why I don't have them number 1, or at least top 6. My top 25, top 10 rankings, which I'll try and get out by the end of the week. No promises, though. They're not finished yet. And Chris, thank you for the $2 super chat. I do see that it's 7, so this is perfect. Thank you. This is like a nice ceremony. The $2 super chat. It's a tradition of Chris Lane. Thank you for that. I will hurry back, and always go Buckeyes. If you were the president of Ohio State and Ryan Day takes the 5th loss, would you fire him? No. I will put the shoe on the other foot. If Day was the head coach at Penn State, I was the university president at Penn State, he never beats Ohio State, but he beats everyone else and he won a natty. Wouldn't fire him. If he was the head coach at Michigan and he was getting, beat by Ohio State every year, even in his own home, even in humiliating ways, even if it seemed like he would rather eat cat litter than play his rival properly and actually take them, for what they are, I wouldn't fire him. You want to know why? Because he beats everyone else. Day is 70-10 in his career at Ohio State. His one unranked loss is to a rival in Michigan that on that day was playing multiple NFL picks on the defensive line, including some future ones that come back like Rayshon Benny and Derek Moore. All his other 9 losses are to teams that finished ranked top 25. You take out 2021 Oregon, all of them are to teams that finished in the top 10. Georgia, Alabama, and Michigan, 3 of his losses, won the title. Clemson in 19 played for a natty. Oregon this past season went 13-0, and I think has one of the best head coaches in the country in Dan Lanning. To add on to that, I don't think Lanning is better than Day right now. But there's a very good chance he is, and we just don't know it yet because Oregon is still behind Ohio State in terms of roster talent, and because Ohio State had Jim Knowles and Chip Kelly, so more experienced, older, wiser coordinators. Not saying that's what I think. I'm saying it's a possibility. I'm saying, looking at things, don't be shocked if in 5 years Oregon's the best program in the Big Ten. That Rose Bowl game changes a lot. But I will tell you, Georgia destroyed Michigan in 2021, and then 2 years later, Michigan was clearly the better team. They would have beaten Georgia, I will say confidently, by 10 points in 2023. Ohio State got de-pantsed. They got humiliated on live TV in the 2020 national title game. 2 years later in 2022, they were better. The only team that year who roster-wise was going to beat Georgia, potentially dominate them, was that Buckeye team, and they nearly did. And then in 2023, Ohio State was way better than Alabama again. And then they were better than them again this past season. So a blowout win or loss doesn't determine things for the next decade or 5 years. Lanning was only in year 3. And a lot of those players were transfers or guys that Cristobal had a hand in. So, just saying, on that front, that's just a long way to say that no, I would never fire Ryan Day. It's pointless, absolutely pointless. He only loses to the teams that everyone loses to, even Nick Saban, and he doesn't lose to unranked opponents. Outside of that one Michigan team. And in the future, he probably will again because super conferences are tough. You can't have depth the same way you used to be able to, like Day had in 2020 or 2021. I mean, if the new roster limits are imposed, even the 21, 22, and 23, and certainly the 24 team will probably be deeper than most teams he has from here on out because depth across the board will be cut. It's why I hate that scholarship limit. They should just keep it at 85. Or you can move it up to 105 if you want, but let there be unlimited walk-ons. Walk-ons aren't going to change the game outside of helping you practice, which makes the sport better. Don't remove them. It's also like you get guys who come from nothing to something, and that's awesome to follow. Let me see, what else is there? What's your ideal, realistic Michigan season? Oh, my ideal but realistic Michigan season is that Michigan does what Oregon did last year. You go undefeated by winning a bunch of close games. You somehow win the Big Ten championship, again, close game, and then you just die in the playoffs. Don't give me any hope. That's my ideal season. Because I will tell you, And this will remain the case no matter what happens. I will try my best. Unless, of course, things change so extremely, it's like, okay, this is obviously a natty contender team. If Michigan's winning a bunch of games and they're not killing them like they did in 23 or Georgia did in 21 or Ohio State did at times in 22 or 19, I am never going to buy into them as a serious natty contender who can make a deep run. I can't do it. They have worse, let me tell you. Harrison Wallace III would be Michigan's best wide receiver this year, and it wouldn't be close. That's so bad. That's so bad. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, Rutgers, probably Maryland because they're good at developing wide receivers, Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, maybe Illinois, probably Illinois, USC, Washington, Oregon. There's got to be someone I'm forgetting. Indiana, almost forgot them, but didn't. Did I mention Ohio State? Yes, you did mention Ohio State. So out of the 17 other Big Ten teams, besides Michigan, I think 13 of them straight up have better wide receiver rooms. And the ones that are close to Michigan's camp, you're talking UCLA, you're talking Purdue, you're talking, you're talking Iowa, and you're talking Northwestern. Like, those are the wide receiver rooms that are comparable to Michigan's. That's awful. I'm telling you, Harrison Wallace III, who probably in some way got kicked to the curb by James Franklin, would be wide receiver 1 for Michigan this year. It's insane. So that is my realistic scenario. Gyro, thank you for coming on here and commenting. I love how you contribute and watch consistently. I appreciate that. That would be my dream scenario for Michigan. You beat your rivals again. You go undefeated in the regular season. You win the Big Ten, win 13 games, and then you have everything that you avoided in the regular season come right at your face like Oregon did in your quarterfinal. And you just fall on the sword. You accept that Underwood had a good first year, that this just wasn't your year, and that especially if the opponent is a Penn State, a Texas, maybe a Georgia, or one of those teams lost. I mean, maybe like Penn State loses to Michigan somehow in the Big Ten championship game because James Franklin has a bad game, but then they're on fire in the playoffs and beat Michigan by 40 points. You accept, like, hey, Michigan was not going to win the title this year. The best they could do is win a bunch of close games, use their kicking, use their defense, which will probably be top 5, and get Underwood comfortable. And there you go. That's my dream season. Nebraska versus Michigan Week 4 prediction. With the suspension news today, I went from being fairly confident that would be a Michigan win to now holding off on that a little bit. I'd still stay intuitively Michigan wins because I think it's a bad matchup, and I do not have any faith in Nebraska's defensive line or secondary. So Michigan's wide receivers might be able to do something against Nebraska's defense, and I don't think Nebraska's D-line is going to do anything against Michigan's O-line or even get pressure on Underwood. It'll come down to, can Nebraska's linebackers compensate for everything else that's going on defense? And Chris Lane, hey, you said it. You want Underwood to develop and get better all the time, regardless of what you see on the scoreboard. Early predictions for the game this year. I think that it's a Michigan win. And before anyone says I'm biased for saying that, I've picked Ohio State 3 out of the previous 4 games to win. It's been Ohio State who's disappointed me. I have no issue picking Ohio State when I think they're better than Michigan or when I think they have a matchup edge. They don't. Their matchup edge was last year, and as I have tweeted before, their staff Their staff chose to eat used cat litter instead of doing the It's so frustrating. If they just had a healthy McLaughlin or Simmons, they win, and it doesn't matter that their game plan was that trash. It's so bad. I mean, I had a betting friend who lost like thousands of dollars on that game because it was a layup. Like, in most universes with different staffs, Ohio State wins that game by 1 billion points. I think this year, Michigan converges a lot with Ohio State roster-wise outside of wide receiver, where I think Ohio State actually continues to separate because I think they're going to have a better receiver room this year than they did last year. Michigan's won't be that much better. But Michigan's D-line is going to regress, but Ohio State's is going to regress more. And Michigan brings back about as much as Ohio State does in the O-line, except Michigan has actually better recruits there now. And they have a better history at guard and center of recent memory and of college O-line play overall. Ohio State's better at tackle, and I think there's a good chance that reigns this year as well. Because I think right now Nainwa will probably be the best tackle for both teams. At the very worst, he'll be the second best, for example. Michigan has some freaks at tackle, though, so maybe that's being too generous to Ohio State, but Nainwa's good. I've watched him on film. I've looked at his PFF grades. He's impressive. My prediction's probably Michigan wins in a close game. I don't have much confidence, especially with Ohio State getting a kicker now. I don't think Michigan's going to blow out Ohio State. But this is the best matchup for Michigan in the game in terms of how the game's decided. It's their best since 2022. It might even be better than 2022. It might be their best since 2021, depending on how the trenches for both teams play out. But I think regardless of that, it's the best since 2022. Ohio State really did shut the door on the matchup advantages in 2024 and 2023. Michigan just had the better overall team and was at home in 2023. And then in 2024, circle back to the worst game plan in the world. Stuff happens. But that's my early prediction. Good to see you in here, CLE Mike. Thank you for your help, your support in the channel, and go Buckeyes. If you're still on listening, are you and Garrison and Chris and Juck all doing the Buckeye Brigade tomorrow? I don't exactly know how that works. Like, do all of you guys go on, or does it depend on everyone's availability? I'll make sure to tune in tomorrow. I think it's Tuesdays at 7 p.m., 6 p.m. I'll check it out. It's a good show, by the way. You should all check out Ohio State football at the Voice of College Football, and also Juck on Bucks. Those are really, really good Buckeye channels. Awesome. Definitely going to be collaborating with them. I think it's a pretty solid ideal season. Only way that could be ruined is if it's Ohio State that obliterates them to play. Oh my gosh. Yeah. If Michigan went 13-1 and got destroyed by Ohio State in the playoffs, I'd rather lose an additional game. Maybe an additional 2 games. So, yeah. But at the same time, if Ohio State goes on to win the Natty and Michigan beats them once in the regular season, maybe they beat them a little bit, dominantly. Maybe I'd take losing to them in the playoffs. I don't know. From an objective point of view, Michigan takes that season regardless of what happens with Ohio State. Because, for example, right now a lot's being made of the fact that Ohio State's recruiting well and Oregon isn't. That's being overhyped for obviously tactical reasons. But Ohio State typically does a pretty good job of getting a lot of good players early. And then it's teams like Oregon, Texas, Alabama that really surge late. Georgia's the same way. Georgia does a good job of taking advantage of early recruits, of like early opportunities for closing on recruits, for example. I changed the green screen background to something more college football related. Maybe, but I think it's better than the old stadium, for sure. We'll have to see. Me personally, I think Jeremiah Smith pulls the 2023 Marvin Harrison Jr. versus Michigan basically doesn't allow Ohio State to lose. Also, Underwood shows his inexperience. Ohio State wins in a close game like 2017. I could see it, especially if Ohio State's defense is once again elite. I can see that. Totally fair. I will say I'm pretty confident. I don't think any team blows out each other. I don't think so. There's, of course, an opportunity for that, but I just don't think it happens. Yeah, Nick, I see what you're saying. There isn't much college football background content because I got this for free off of a website. I can actually show you guys a nifty trick of mine. So I'm gonna be changing camera angles at times, like this, like what's happening right here. I can change my camera angle now. The animation maybe needs to be a little bit better, but yeah, I can change camera angles. It's a cool thing. Got a second camera. Thank you to Chris Drew for recommending the camera that I got. It's a Sony model. So, yeah, I just don't think there's as much that looks professional like this in the college football world. And it's also just cool. Like, it looks newsworthy. Like, yeah. So, yeah, you're gonna see a lot of this stuff get used, especially as I get more used to it and toy with it more. Do you think Illinois can be a Big Ten championship contender this year? The final quarter, you're the extra yard. This is just your new account. I love the gosh, I feel bad for you knowing you're a Browns fan. I feel bad. Like, God bless you for being a Browns fan. You can be a Lions fan, though. You can take my spot because I'm that one idiot fan from Michigan who laughs every time the Lions lose. I don't know why. I think the Lions losing is the funniest thing in the world. Please don't hate me for that opinion. It's the same thing with, like, all teams that are traditionally bad. It's like the Browns, the Bengals. Although I kind of like the Bengals because of Joe Burrow. Can Illinois be a Big Ten championship contender this year? I don't think so. I think Illinois is going to be a lot like Iowa last year. Because of how much they bring back, they'll get better in the power ratings. They'll have a higher ceiling. But they're not going to improve enough to where they'll avoid playing in a good amount of close games. And since they won a lot of close games last year, they're likely going to lose more of them this year as, you regress to the mean. I think that Illinois, they could be a contender to make it, but if they make it, barring like maybe USC or Michigan or Indiana, more so the former two because they only play like, I would say, one elite Big Ten team. Indiana plays two. If they make it to Indy and they face off against someone who's maybe played only one great Big Ten team, then maybe they can. But I don't think that's how it's going to work. Like, if Illinois played Penn State would beat them by 20 points. And it would probably feel like they beat them by 40. I think if they played Ohio State, maybe they can upset them because it's at home. It's technically a rivalry. Bielema does a good job of trying to ensure his team punches above their weight. They could beat Ohio State. They could maybe even beat them by, a touchdown or even 10 points. They could also lose to them by 40. So what's the average of that? You're losing to them by, 15 points? 2 scores? I'm not high on Illinois. I'm not buying them. I don't like that Joel Klatt has them in his top 10. I don't like that a lot of people like him. I think it's a sweet story, but I think typically your sweet stories happen in ways that people don't expect. Like, people didn't expect Boise State to have the success they did under Chris Peterson. They didn't expect Boise State to have the success they did last year. They didn't expect Indiana. I mean, where did Indiana come from? Their preseason win total was like 5.5, for crying out loud. So I would love to see Illinois go 12-0. I think that'd be awesome. I'd love to see them go 12-0 and then play as dominantly as Indiana did, with a higher ceiling against big-time opponents, which they'll have to have if they go 12-0 because they'll beat Ohio State. And then I can say, oh, cool, this is a non-blue chip ratio team that can actually win it all. But I don't think that's going to happen. Deacon Hill or Bryce Underwood with one arm tied behind his back and blindfolded. Bryce Underwood. Because Bryce Underwood could at least run. Deacon Hill is built like a cheeseburger. My prediction for this game is we get a JT Barrett wasn't short moment again. Here's my question to Michigan and Ohio State fans. Would you rather blow out the other, or would you rather win in a close, controversial game on a bad call and get the cathartic release of knowing that your team won and the other team is going to have that bad call rewinding in their head, and they're going to be complaining about it to you. But they can't do anything because you won. Because that's what the JT Barrett was short game was, and I think a lot of Ohio State fans view that one as more satisfying as some of their more dominant ones. Because those type of games get in your opponent's head. They do. And the fans' head in particular. That is why I think, like, from an objective angle, the 23 and 24 Michigan wins are better than the prior season wins. Personally. That's what I think. Because they were close wins. They were gritty. And they were against some really good teams. Let me see. I swear, if Illinois takes the Eli Buck Trophy away from us, oh my gosh, that'd be horrible. And let me put it in terms that people will understand. If Illinois is a Big Ten championship contender, then there is a chance that Ohio State goes 8-4. Do you think that there is a chance that Ohio State can go 8-4 or not? Because if you don't, Illinois will probably be worse, if not definitely, than Penn State and Texas, and they profile as being worse than Michigan. If your answer to that's no, there's no way they're going 8-4, 9-3 or 10-2 is their floor, then Illinois is not a Big Ten championship contender. Because if you're a Big Ten championship contender, you have to at least play with Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State. You have to play with them, or be able to beat them. Stereotypical Buckeye, where the heck you been? School, setting up this studio. I imagine, I don't know if you saw the Stereotypical Buckeye, but I can switch cameras now. It's like this, cool superpower. I don't know. I can do that. There's other things I can do as well that I'm not showing on this stream, but there's like other transitions and things that'll take effect that'll be really cool for everyone to see. Indiana versus Illinois at IU. Who do you think wins? Early answer will be Indiana. I'll explain why in a different video. I am so high on Indiana. It's sickening, and I'm scared that I'm going to look like an idiot, but I am very, very high in Indiana. Indiana is, out of all the Big Ten teams last year, the top 4 Big Ten teams, Ohio State and Oregon are regressing. There's a chance that they'll regress by a lot. Penn State's improving. There's a chance that Penn State improves by a lot. Indiana has the same returning production that Penn State does. And Cignetti's in his second year. Typically, you see staffers take the biggest leap in their second year. Even in instances with bad coaching staffs. Think of Mel Tucker in 2021. Michigan didn't do that, but Rich Rod recruited very well. Tressel, example of a good coach, took his biggest leap in his second year. Lloyd Carr was more of a year 3 thing. Cignetti's a damn good coach. You don't win 11 games at Indiana with luck. Luck may have been involved, but he's won everywhere he's been. He is to Indiana what Kalen DeBoer, I think, was to Washington. And now he's in year 2. They return a decent amount. I would argue they upgraded at quarterback with Mendoza over Rourke, at least in terms of potential. It is scary how high I am on Indiana. I'll get into that in a different video, though. I would rather have a 2018 type blowout against an elite Michigan team. Honestly, same here. The cathartic close win would be awesome, but the blowout's better. Ryan Hobbs, Michigan looking at 7-5 again. That's possible. I think Michigan could go 7-5, or they could go 12-0. Like the range of outcomes for that team is insane. Absolutely crazy. You're optimistic about your Huskers? I'm optimistic about them long term. As for this year, they could go 6-6 again, or they could go 11-1. Crazy, isn't it? Mendoza is the most slept-on quarterback, and you also say the Duck Knight, Oregon is only going to get more talented. Yes. I don't think Oregon has any issue with recruiting right now whatsoever. I think they're missing on some guys, but they'll more than make it up. And I do agree Mendoza is slept on. What do you think Penn State's floor is? Their floor is 10-2, losing to both Oregon and Ohio State or beating one of them, and then losing to, I don't know, Indiana or maybe Iowa or maybe an MSU on the road. I think that's their floor. Ever going to do a call-in show? I've considered it. I might, but it's not in the cards right now. It's just a lot more to think about. It would take more time, and unless I got consistently good callers, I couldn't turn it. Unless I got consistently good callers or callers that were just absolutely ridiculous so they would let me go AWOL on them and rant, it wouldn't produce good content. But I like the idea, and I'm considering it. So thank you, Stereotypical Buckeye, for bringing that up. DeMoney5675, to watch a game live, I would want to blow up, but to watch a game back years in the future, I prefer a close game. I respect that. Gyro, with the context of the previous 4 years, the blowout is more tempting than ever, but personally, I just need to see Day and the Bucks look mentally put together, regardless of win or lose. Huh. Did you phrase that in the way that I think you did? Where you basically are saying, because I know you're a Michigan fan. Oh, no, you're not a Michigan fan. Gosh, I'm confusing you with someone else. My apologies. My apologies. I didn't recognize the profile photo, but yeah. Gyro is very active in my Discord, also in my Twitter. He's pretty active. One of the best Buckeye fans that I know. A lot of great Buckeyes in this chat right now. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we've talked about this before, and I think I've mentioned it before in general, that Day has to play against Michigan on his own terms. That's what you need to see in 2025. He can't lose by trying to once again LARP as Urban Meyer. That's unacceptable. If he's going to lose to Michigan again, and it's not going to taste like the worst thing ever in your mouth, it has to be because Day decided to let it loose, play loose, and look mentally put together. And at the end of the day, Michigan just played well, took it personally, got a win, ultimately. So I agree with that, especially since in 2026, Ohio State's bringing everyone back, and you got to start every year anew, especially if you're not on the hot seat. And Day's not on the hot seat. If you're Brian Kelly at LSU, your prior track records are going to get held up against you, and no matter what your circumstances, the time is now. But if you're Day, or you're Kirby Smart, or you're coaches that have leeway, you get to set targeted goals beyond this year. You just do. And I think for Ohio State, the goal should always be to beat Michigan. That should be the expectation. Within reason, of course. I think if a locker room does believe they'll always beat their rival, that's incredibly dangerous. And I think that's something Ohio State has issues with right now. Michigan used to have them and probably still does to a certain degree with Michigan State. At the same time, if you're Ohio State, recognize that your team hasn't won in Ann Arbor since 2019. They return a lot more. You lose a lot. Injuries happen, depth for all teams is thin, and you just won the Natty last year. So go out and have your best effort against Michigan, but if it's a good game and they beat you, your coach isn't getting fired, your infrastructure and culture are awesome, and you get another, it's just, well, we're going to try and get another crack at them in 2026. So those are my thoughts there. I love the analogy you made, Sam, when you said that Day treats the game like a ritual where he has to run the ball instead of playing it like the 2022 UGA game. Yes, and that's also why right now I would still pick Michigan to an extent. A lot of people are making the argument that because of what Day did in the playoffs, he's relaxed and won't tense up against Michigan. Number one, when you compare that game, when you compare a rivalry game to your father tragically passing away, That's not going away because you achieve something. Like, that takes you purposely focusing on that thing and working through that. Number two, we've seen Day be loose before. Think of 2020 or 2022 or even 2021 in the Rose Bowl. We have seen him loosen up even when there is pressure. So that's just that's my mind. He treats it like a ritual, and I don't think it's a he's under pressure thing. I think it's a him thing. That's him. That's his team, I think. And I don't know exactly what it is. I think some of it's, how important the game is. Some of it might be a consequence of success of where Ohio State's just beaten Michigan so many times in the 21st century that the players who commit to Ohio State genuinely believe they can't lose to Michigan until it happens. And now Michigan just has to win for so many more games until Ohio State players finally say, like, okay, yeah, Michigan can beat us. We have to take them seriously. The only time I've seen Day treat the game like a game and cut it loose and come up with great concepts and coach well was in 2023. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Ohio State was an underdog in that game, and therefore the pressure was off, and Day kind of had to cut it loose because he wasn't expected to win. And that game they lost because Michigan was better. Sam, when he has the chance to hate on Brian Kelly, it's free real estate. It's not that I hate Brian Kelly, although I don't like him as a coach. You can't waste Jaden Daniels. You can't turn Matt House into a bad DC when he was a good NFL position coach and expect me to believe in you. Can't do it. And you know what? Guess who the head coach was for Notre Dame when they backed out of those Michigan and Michigan State rivalries and decided to play all those ACC Charmin cupcakes? It's Brian Kelly. It was Brian Kelly. And then he didn't do what Freeman did, where Freeman still plays the outside of this coming year and the year prior, the schedules are tough. So Freeman has not only taken Notre Dame to a level that Kelly couldn't, he's also done it while playing on average probably a slightly tougher schedule too. So respects to Freeman and no respects to Kelly. How do you feel about Ryan Day coaching in a Maze-Out Big House? It would be incredible. I hope Michigan makes that the Maze-Out. If more serious stuff comes out and Sherrone Moore gets fired, who do you think will be his replacement for 2026? Well, Michigan's going to hire a new university president. If Moore gets hit with a show cause, I imagine they get rid of Ward. And I think at this point you have to... Let's say Moore only gets suspended for 2 games, and then he turns out to be Michigan's version of Ryan Day, maybe even better because, he maybe wins the game more often. You still fire Ward Manuel because all this cheating stuff and all the Matt Weiss stuff came about during his tenure. Ward's been an absolute disaster. As for replacements, I have no clue, but I think Michigan could get a lot of good names. I mean, you know what? If it takes Michigan being bad this season and they get Curt Cignetti, I would take that. I'd take it. I think Curt Cignetti at Michigan would win a natty, maybe even 2, if he stays there for a decade. I am really that. If you win 11 games at Indiana, and then I know they got blown out by Notre Dame and Ohio State, but they played competitively with Ohio State for a half, and I think if Rourke didn't have his ACL torn, they would have played more competitively with Notre Dame. Yes, he played with a half-torn ACL for the whole season. I am in love with Cignetti. The issue with Day in Michigan is that he's been sucked into the tradition that the rushing winner wins the game. He stops playing to his strength. This year was a perfect example. Yeah, and I think it's maybe a bit of the locker room too. Like, I think whether it's Brian Hartline or James Laurinaitis or Tim Walton and like even Mickey Marotti and Mark Batoni, you've had guys who either were Buckeyes or have been Buckeyes for a long time who are used to kicking Michigan's butt. Like, that's what they know. And coincidentally, that's what they preach. I mean, think about Caden Curry. Caden Curry said in his live stream when committing to Ohio State that they were never going to lose to Michigan again. And he's a senior. He's one of the few seniors on this team. He probably, to a certain degree, thinks the same way, honestly. It's a day thing, but I also think it's a cultural thing, too. Like the whole Urban Meyer, the team up north stuff, that used to be a genius motivational way to get the team to hate Michigan, to view them as evil, but also to respect them as almost this mythical creature. The team up north sounds like almost this mythical foreign enemy. It feels like Day and his players say the team up north like, we'll beat these guys by 30 every year. If, of course, we're playing on fair terms. That's another reason I hate discussing the whole sign stealing stuff. Is, yes, Michigan cheated. Michigan should be punished. I've always held these opinions. At the same time, why, in regards to the cheating, I sometimes wonder why does Ohio State get the main attention there when Penn State was potentially cheated out of the CFP bid in 2022? If they're 11-1 and beat Michigan, they're probably in. What about 2021, cheated out of a close home game by that same logic? Or 2023? But you don't hear Penn State fans say that. They just say Michigan cheated, they should be punished, and we should move on from the broader things. And I feel like with Ohio State, it's a day thing, but it's also a mentality thing. They honestly believe that Michigan will forever be inferior to them. It's like Michigan against Michigan State. Michigan, and you still see some of it now, it's not to the same degree that it was under Lloyd Carr, Brady Hoke, or Rich Rod. They believed in their deepest being of their soul that Michigan State could never be better than Michigan, and it nearly resulted in an 8-year run for Mark D'Antonio. Just saying. And I wish that Michigan and Ohio State had a night game. I think 2022 and 2023 should have been played at night. The stakes were high enough, and I think at the time, especially in 2023, Michigan and Ohio State were the top two teams in America. At times in 2022, it looked like they were. Nick P. Signetti isn't leaving Indiana. Yeah, I don't think he is, but you full court press. If you do. You have to. Like, he's that good. The sign stealing stuff is over. Real fans don't care, and we are looking forward to the future. And look, for the people who say that Michigan cheated Ohio State out of stuff, they didn't. They almost won the Natty in 2022, and they just won the Natty last year. And last year's game and the 23 game where Stallions wasn't on the sidelines, Michigan won. So really with the sign stealing stuff, I just think it's Michigan cheated. They should be punished. And then after they get punished, like, you just move on. That's kind of my thing. But maybe that's incorrect. I don't know. I have been on for an hour, 40 minutes. It's 40 minutes longer than I said I was going to be on for. And that's because I love all you guys. And I love talking about college football, and I love this community. It's just incredible. We are going to be on, probably not for this duration, but half of that's because I'm not going to be taking questions from you all. I'll peek at the chat periodically, maybe say hi to some of you, but I'm going to be focusing on, delivering more of a news broadcast in my future streams. So thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. Yeah, you guys are awesome, and I'm excited to be back. And do pay attention to the community posts. Follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, at CFBWSam. And expect there to be content. Expect there to be cool things that happen on screen, and there are things I'm planning that if I can execute, you'll be very excited to hear. Get lost, Sam. Thank you, Chris, for the additional $2 super chat. See you soon. See you soon indeed. And yeah, if there is a victim of the cheating scandal, it is CJ Stroud. If there is, I will still say I think it's the defenses and really Day hiring Coombs that victimized Stroud personally. And then Knowles had to clean up the mess. But that is just me personally. But yeah, if anyone was cheated, it was Stroud. I will say though, if Stroud came back for 2023, as was rumored at a time, that team goes 15-0. I would say. Like, given all the other circumstances that happen, they go 15-0. Or if they lost to Michigan in the regular season again, it would be an even worse shame because I think they'd be the best team in the country, regardless. The final quarter, I think the Michigan drama keeps on dragging on with the media because it's taking them forever to get punished. And Michigan and Ohio State fans, those are some of the biggest and most active fans in America. So people make money talking about it, which is part of the reason why, if I'm going to be transparent with you all, then I'm going to be talking about it on Wednesday in reaction to the news that broke today. But also because it's news, and we talk about that. Not always breaking news, but we talk about stuff. I didn't get many USC fans in the chat today, but I'm going to be talking about USC's recruiting because they want 40 commits in a class, and that's going to have a domino effect. I'll see you guys all very soon, and I also agree with you, Wolf Fuel, that Indiana's class is indeed extremely underrated. See you all very soon. Have a fantastic day. And again, soon is Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. No earlier than that, no later than that. And then from there, hopefully we can have daily content. See you guys, and let's have a fantastic 2025 college football season. I believe in us.